Chapter 6 Swedish Creams and Welfare Cheese. Mama stuck her head into the living room and said, Byron, I want you and Kenny to go up to Mitchell's and get some milk, a loaf of bread, and a can of tomato paste for dinner. She waved a little piece of paper at us that had the grocery list written on it. How come Kenny can't go all by himself? Byron, I want half a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, and a small can of tomato paste. If you ask Mama why you had to do something, and if she didn't feel like explaining, she just repeated herself. She was chopping up onions for spaghetti sauce, and I guess the tears made it so she didn't feel like talking. If you were stupid enough to ask her ask your question again, there would be the loudest quiet in the whole world coming from Mama. If you really totally crazy and ask the question a third time, you might as well tie yourself to a tree and say, ready, aim, fire. Byron got the message and jerked up off the couch and walked over to the TV and punched the off button or knob. I knew that was going to be much fun. Walk up to Mitchell's. We went into the kitchen. Give me the money. Just sign for it. Just what? Just tell Mr. Mitchell, that you want to sign for it. Mama kept whacking the onions. What? Just go in there and tell Mr. Mitchell I want to sign for some food? Your daddy and me made all the arrangements last weekend, Byron. Mr. Mitchell will let us go sign for groceries until payday. Lots of people do it. A half a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, and a small can of tomato paste. Mama started chopping the onions a little harder. So, I ain't got to give him no cash? Whack, whack, whack. All of a sudden, Byron's face jumped like a bell went off in his head. Wait a minute. I know what this means. We on welfare, aren't we? I held my breath. If I found out we were on welfare, I was going to really have to get ready to be teased. No, we're not on welfare. I can't believe it. You're really going to start serving welfare food in this house? You really going to make me go embarrass myself, sign up for welfare list for some groceries like a blank peon? I guess Bai hadn't been counting on how many times Mama had repeated herself. She smacked the knife on the kitchen counter and jumped right up in Bai's face. Listen here, Mr. High Mighty. Since you just got to know food is food. You've eaten welfare food in this house before, and if you need be, you will eat it again. Don't you come playing that nonsense with me. I already told you this is not welfare food. You've got about 5 seconds to have that door hit you in the back. Kenny, move. She Bi pouted and walked real fast to Mitchell's, so I kind of had to run along to keep up with him. He didn't say anything while we got the stuff Mama wanted. He just snatched the things off the shelves, then he dropped the bomb on me. You gotta go get in line and hold our spot. I'ma look for some comics for a minute. When you get up to the register, I'll come and tell 'em how we gonna pay. Aw, man! I knew what he meant, but I figured out a way not to be embarrassed. He was going to hide until after I'd signed for the groceries. I was going to be the one who got embarrassed. Couldn't argue or anything, so now it was me who was the pouting. Byron disappeared around the comic book rack. Hi, Kenny. Hi, Mr. Mitchell. This all you want? Uh-huh. He took the groceries and rang them up on the cash register. That's $1.23. I saw Bai's head come up peeking out of the comics. That has got to go on the welfare list, I kind of said quietly. Mr. Mitchell twisted up his face. On the what? I said real low so only Mr. Mitchell could hear. We just found out we got put on welfare, and we gotta sign this food up on the welfare list. Byron's head disappeared again. Mr. Mitchell laughed. Kenny, this isn't a welfare list. It just means your mama and daddy gonna pay me once instead of a few times a week. Really? Mr. Mitchell reached under the counter and opened up a little brown box. He pulled out a bunch of yellow cards that I could see. Watson was written on the top on them, and he wrote $1.23 on the first line and said, "Sign here." Then pointed to the spot next to the $1.23. I wrote Kenneth Watson and gave it back to his pen. "That's it? That's it." He put the groceries in a brown paper bag and handed them to me. "See it, Mr. Mitchell." The second I walked out of the store, Byron was next to me, and he was in a lot better mood. "Man, I can't believe it. We just had a chance to get a bag full of free food, and all we took was some stupid milk, a loaf of bread, and a can of tomato sauce." Byron's good mood started getting to me, too. He was smiling and even put his arm around my shoulder as we walked. I couldn't help myself. I felt so grown up to have Bi walking with me like that. I started laughing right along with him. His mood was much better than he even took the bag of groceries from me. Most of the time, when Mama made us go to Mitchell's, Byron would make me carry the bags from the store right up to the front porch, and then he'd take them from me, so Mama would think that he carried them the whole way. But now he started carrying them 4 blocks away from home. "This is just too much. All you gotta do is sign the stupid card, and that old fool Mitchell's gonna give you what you want. Too much." Now that was happy, I had 2 questions I wanted to ask him. First, he'd said a word that I'd never heard before. Since he said it in front of Mama, I knew it wasn't cussing. We walked all the way home with his arm around my shoulder, and I thought, well, I might as well get a real answer from him. "Byron, what's a peon?" "A peon? Don't you see? Didn't you see the Magnificent Seven? Peons was them folks that were so poor that the rich folks would just as soon pee on them as anything else." I knew he had to be a lie. You could get yourself in a lot of trouble if you listened to half-witted stuff Byron said. But I asked him the next question anyways. "What do you think the welfare food was Mama said that she gave us?" I wish I hadn't asked, because this brought back his bad mood. He took his arm from my shoulder and said, "I know what it was." He handed me back the groceries. "Don't you remember how some of the time Dad would sneak up to the morning and go to the kitchen, and when he came out there was this big jug of milk? Ain't you ever wondered where that milk came from? You ever seen any udders on Dad? That milk came out of one of those them big brown boxes they keep up on the high shelves in Pure D welfare food. And don't you remember that cheese? Who ever heard of cheese coming in a box as big as a loaf of bread? You ever try to pick one of them things up? Real cheese comes in hunks or slices, not no blang loaf that weigh 40 pounds. I always thought there was something strange about that mess, and now I know. She'd been sneaking us food, pure D welfare food. The cheese tasted okay to me, and except for a big powdery lump every once in a while, Dad's milk was all right too. But to try to get Byron back to his good mood, I acted real disgusted and said, "Ew, man." A week later, I was walking in the alley behind Mitchell's when a big cookie with pink frosting just about hit me in the head. It went it went by like a little flash of flying saucer, then crashed to the dirt. I looked all around and didn't see anybody, so I put my hands over my face and stood still, because I knew if something weird like that happened once, it's usually going to happen again. Sure enough, another cookie hit me right in the back, and a big laugh came out of the green apple tree. Byron. He dropped out of the tree like a superhero. He had a great big bag of cookies in one hand and a green apple with a giant bite out of it in the other. "Want some?" I tipped the bag of Swedish cream cookies at me. I knew this was a trick. The bag must have been empty, but I looked inside anyway. There was still half a bag of cookies. "Thanks." I grabbed 2 of the cookies and looked at them real good in case he had put some bugs or something on them. They were clean, but I kept waiting for the trick. Why would Byron waste 4 good cookies on me. Man, Swedish creams have got to be the best cookies in the world. I gulped them down and wiped my hands on my pants. I couldn't believe it. Bi tipped the bag at me again. He jumped up and snatched a green apple off the tree, checked for some wormholes, and then handed it to me. You best eat some of this. Them Swedish creams is good at first, but they get kind of thick in your mouth and your throat after a while. Byron was being too nice, so I knew something bad was about to happen. Then I noticed a crumpled up Swedish cream bag on the ground next to the tree, and I could figure out why he was being so generous. He'd already eaten a bag and a half. A bell went off in my head, and I knew why he'd been so excited and happy when he found out about getting free food at Mitchell's. Just by was signing up for stuff Mama and Daddy didn't even know about. It was like he read my mind because I was just about to say, "Oh, bye." Then he stopped being friendly and crossed his eyes at me and said, "Don't even think about it, Poindexter. You ate 2 of them yourself, so quit wasting my cookies and just shut up and enjoy what's left." He tipped the bag at me again. He had me. I couldn't tell on him, or else I'd be in just as much trouble as he would. So I took another one and I went over to the green apple tree and slid his back against until it was sitting down. I did the same thing right next to him and we sat together munching. I wasn't used to being this friendly with Byron, so I guess I kind of was nervous and didn't really know I should talk about. But I just sat there chomping down apples. So I tried to think of some what him and Bumphead would talk about when they sat like this. Finally, I said, "So, bye. How about you and me doing a little cussing?" He twisted up his face. "I thought I told you, your jive little butt, to shut up and enjoy the dang cookies. Now do it." I got a huge smile. This was perfect day, but always, Bi ruined it. "Look!" He pointed up at the telephone wire where a bird sat. The bird was about the size of a pigeon. The grayish brown was long and pointy tail hanging underneath it. Bi jumped up and said, "That's a mourning dove. They are the coolest birds in the world. Don't nothing shake 'em." Bi threw a Swedish cream at it. The cookie zipped right by the bird's head, and all the bird did was raise its wings once and look behind it. He threw 3 more cookies at that bird, and still it didn't move. When Byron's 4th Swedish cookie left his hand, I knew that if that bird didn't move, he was going to get whacked. The cookie popped the bird smack jab in the chest. The bird's wings both stuck out to the side for a hot second, with his tail hanging down and its wings sticking out like it looked like a perfect small letter T stuck up in the telephone wire. Then, in slow motion, the bird leaned back and crashed to the dirt of the alley behind Mitchell's. I've been throwing rocks at birds since I was born, and I'd never even come close to hitting one. I'd seen a million people throw millions things at birds, but no one ever really hit one, not even a pigeon. But now, Bi had knocked the bird right out of the sky with a Swedish cream cookie. When I got to Byron's, he'd picked up the bird and was holding on to it with his hands. The bird's head dropped backward, and it was rolling from side to side, dead as a doughnut. "You got him! You got a bird!" Byron held the bird with one hand, and with his other he gently brushed the pink frosting off the dove's chest. "You got him! I've never seen a bird get—" I looked right at Bi, and his face was all twisted up, and his eyes were kind of shut. He dropped the bird, walked over to the green apple tree, and started throwing up. I stood there with my mouth open. I couldn't believe Byron was starting to cry, and I couldn't believe how much vomit a bag and a half of Swedish cream cookies and green apples could make. When it looked like he was done, I walked over and put my hand on his back. As soon as I touched him, he popped me in the arm hard. "Bye, what?" He picked up a rotten apple and threw it at me. Get the heck out of here. What you starting at? Them apples got me sick. Little cross-eyed punk. Get out of here." Rotten apples started coming at me real hard and fast, so I left. It was hard to understand what was going on with Byron. Some of the time, if a genie came and gave you 3 wishes, you wouldn't mind using all 3 of them to wish some real bad stuff on him. Not stupid things, like that woman in the fairy tale when she wished her husband had a sausage on his nose either. I mean, like stuff that Byron would hurt so much that he'd have to think of every day about how mean he is. If he just had a sausage growing off of his nose, people might laugh at him, but behind his back. But no one would have the nerve to tease him to his face or call him weenie nose or something. He wouldn't know how to feel it feels to always have someone jumping on you and how sad it made you get. Sometimes I hated him that much that I thought he was the meanest person in the whole world. After my arm quit hurting from his punch, I went to the back alley behind Mitchell's to take another look at that dead bird, but it was gone. Right in the spot where the bird had crashed, but Bi had dug a little grave. On top of the little grave, there were 2 popsicle sticks tied together in a cross. Leave it to Daddy Cool to kill a bird and give it a funeral. Leave it to Daddy Cool to torture human kids at school all day long and never have his conscience bother him, but to feel worry for a stupid little grayish brown bird. I don't know. I really wish I was as smart as some people thought. I, they thought I was, 'cause some of the time it was real hard to understand what was going on with Bi.